Chapter 231 Blood Lotus Resurrected. Enormous Phenomenon. Beside the Black Lotus, Lin Xiaoxiao's figure appeared quietly, holding a golden bead that emitted a dazzling light in her hands. It was the glazed golden bead that she had just exchanged from the Pengyun space. The pure and dazzling Buddha light flowed around, dispelling some of the black mist in the valley. The glass bead was carefully placed in the center of the Black Lotus. Wisps of dark red threads emerged, intertwining and wrapping around the bead, rapidly wriggling and absorbing the pure Buddhist power. As the original power of the glazed golden pearl dissipated, the surface of the Black Lotus shimmered with light, and profound inscriptions appeared. The air current surged throughout the space, and the surrounding spiritual energy rushed towards the valley like a tidal wave. Strange phenomena filled the sky, with blood-red clouds churning and spreading outwards, dyeing most of the western region's skies an ominous dark red. Lin Xiaoxiao stood quietly by her side, sensing the consciousness rapidly coalescing within, a faint smile appearing on her lips. This huge commotion immediately attracted the attention of the outside world. Old Hua, who was waiting outside the valley, noticed it immediately and looked up at the valley with a look of shock on his face. What caused this strange phenomenon? At this moment, a sense of unease arose in his heart. He felt that this small holy lotus sect was not as simple as he had imagined. They immediately took to the air, and strands of dark red silk threads drifted towards the valley, filling the air with a chilling aura. This made Hua Lao's expression extremely solemn. In the corner, Fatty curled up, looking up at the valley from which the strange phenomenon was coming from. His eyes filled with a mixture of excitement and tension. He kept praying in his heart, "My lord, you must succeed." He didn't know what the adults were doing, but every time he got close to Black Lotus, the instinctive fear he felt told him that what the adults were doing was definitely not simple. Perhaps this is his only hope of surviving. Further away, mortals, startled by the strange phenomenon, knelt on the ground, while cultivators looked up in horror at the gathering of blood clouds. Everyone sensed the malevolent aura emanating from this place. Meanwhile, on the top floor of the Wanbao Pavilion in the blissful heavenly capital, Su Wenzhe knelt on the ground, not daring to look up at the person in front of him. "You don't know Elder Hua's whereabouts either?" A cold voice came from above. "Then what do you think he might be doing?" Sweat rolled down Su Wenzhe's forehead. He had some suspicions, but he never expected that Elder Hua would still dare to covet the Pengyun Token despite the headquarters' explicit prohibition. At this moment, he dared not conceal anything. If he could stop Elder Hua from making a grave mistake, he might be able to make amends. "It is Pengyun Token." Su Wenzhe's voice trembled slightly. "Elder Hua must have gone to seize the Pengyun Token. It's in the hands of an organization called the Holy Lotus Sect, but I don't know its exact location." The young man sitting at the top was Mu Qingyun, who had come from headquarters specifically to prevent Elder Hua from violating the rules of Wanbage. A wisp of Mahayana-level pressure pressed down on Su Wenzhe, the voice filled with displeasure. "Your Western Regions branch is becoming increasingly unruly. You'd better pray I can find him in time. Otherwise..." Under this powerful aura, Su Wenzhe's face turned pale and his body trembled. At this moment, he felt extremely regretful and reported the news of the Pengyun Order. Suddenly, the two of them looked up at the same time, staring at the eerie aura emanating from the distance. A flicker of surprise crossed Mu Qingyun's eyes. Its aura was incredibly strange, and it also contained a pure Buddhist and Taoist primordial power, which aroused his curiosity. He felt he should go and see, perhaps he would have unexpected gains. Watching Mu Qingyun's figure disappear, Su Wenzhe slumped to the ground, his face deathly pale, and whispered, "Old Hua, you're confused." In the Western Regions, the Buddha of Rebirth, who was refining the human ultimate elixir, and the Buddha of Joy, who was meditating, were both awakened at the same time. A flicker of panic crossed his eyes. How is this possible? Compared to others, the two were extremely familiar with this aura, but that made it all the more unbelievable. This is the aura of a Buddha's disciple. But didn't the Buddha's disciple already self-destruct? This thought arose simultaneously in the minds of both the Buddha of Rebirth and the Buddha of Joy, who couldn't understand why it would reappear. The thought of resurrection had barely formed in their minds when the two of them, without delay, transformed into two golden streaks of light and soared into the sky. They were well aware of the Buddha's power and the terrible threat he posed to Buddhist practitioners. Compared to the Buddha, everything else became less important. They can even temporarily set aside their past grievances and join forces again. The high-level cultivators of the western regions were all alarmed by the strange phenomenon of the blood lotus's resurrection. Under the shroud of blood mist, streaks of light were rushing toward the source of the strange phenomenon. Those who did not understand might mistake it for the emergence of a high-level spiritual creature or the appearance of ancient ruins. Inside the valley, the Black Lotus's transformation has reached a critical moment. The glass bead dimmed completely, and with a loud bang, it turned into powder and dissipated into the space. At the center of the lotus platform, a blood-red fleshy embryo was enveloped in black mist, emitting a beating sound like a heart. Lord Blood Lotus, Lord Blood Lotus. Lin Xiaoxiao couldn't help but call out Blood Lotus's name, hoping to get a response from the other party. Outside the valley, Elder Hua hovered in mid-air, his expression shifting between light and dark. He could sense that something strange was reviving in the valley, and he couldn't help but think of what Fatty had told him before. The Holy Lotus cult's initiation ceremony. Elder Hua looked towards the valley and muttered to himself, could it really be the birth of an evil god? Such an eerie aura is naturally something only an evil god could possess. Under normal circumstances, he would never risk provoking the other party, but the Pengyun Token was something he was determined to obtain, and he was unwilling to back down. Gritting his teeth, he decided to take a gamble. A powerful aura belonging to the late stage of Mahayana cultivation emanated from the area, and spiritual energy gathered around, pressing down on the Black Lotus shield. Snap! Cracks appeared on the Black Lotus shield. The Blood Lotus, still reassembling and not yet awakened, could not possibly withstand the attack from the Mahayana. The Black Lotus surface shone with a brilliant black spiritual light, and dark red threads gathered towards the crack, rapidly repairing the fissure. Inside the protective barrier, Lin Xiaoxiao's expression changed drastically. She looked up at the sky and saw an old man gathering his attack. No! Lin Xiaoxiao took to the air. This was a crucial moment for Lord Blood Lotus's resurrection. How could she allow others to disturb her? With a cold gaze, she looked at the old man outside the protective barrier. The bright moonlight flowed around her, and she stretched out her hands in front of her, forming a protective barrier of hazy white light outside the Black Lotus. This is an innate divine ability that comes with her constitution, moonlight protection, which can unleash defensive power far exceeding her own. Previously, during the hunting of Buddhist cultivators, he encountered danger many times, but he always managed to kill them by relying on his powerful defense. At this moment, Lin Xiaoxiao's body radiated spiritual light, gathering all her power. She could sense the old man's strength, which was completely incomparable to the Buddhist cultivators she had encountered before. But no matter who the other party is, they must not even think about harming Lord Blood Lotus or preventing her resurrection. Unless, step over her corpse. Chapter 232. Lin Xiaoxiao in a desperate situation. The Mu family arrives. A mere nascent soul cultivator is overestimating himself. Hua Lao glanced at Lin Xiaoxiao, a hint of disdain flashing across his face. He casually conjured an invisible giant hand and reached out to grab the protective barrier in front of him. Click, click. The protective shield, radiating moonlight, appeared extremely fragile under Hua Lao's great ascension realm strength. Lin Xiaoxiao gritted her teeth and persevered, continuing to increase the input of spiritual energy into her body to repair the cracks, engaging in a tug-of-war with Elder Hua. Ha! Elder Hua's expression changed slightly. He hadn't expected that a nascent soul cultivator could block his casual attack. After carefully examining Lin Xiaoxiao, he noticed something amiss. Special physique? Too bad, too weak. Once again, an attack was unleashed, a hand imbued with the laws of fire, glowing faintly red, slapping towards Lin Xiaoxiao. It is clear that, compared to before, Mr. Hua is much more serious this time. He didn't want to waste any more time. The strange phenomenon here must have already attracted the attention of others. At this moment, all he wanted was to get the Pengyun Token as soon as possible and leave this place. Bang! The holy light guardian shattered instantly, transforming into countless pure white rays of light that dissipated into the world. Puff! Lin Xiaoxiao spat out a mouthful of blood, stubbornly raising her hands as if trying to gather spiritual power to block again. Suddenly, his expression changed. The backlash from his physique, which had been suppressed in his dantian, erupted at this moment. Black lines like black worms crawled all over his body, twisting and grotesque, and even his eyes turned pitch black. Lin Xiaoxiao endured the excruciating pain within her body and looked up at the old man's approaching attack. No! Bang! The black lotus shield trembled violently, and cracks appeared, but it did not shatter at the slightest touch. Countless dark red threads surged towards the cracks like a tide, quickly repairing the shield. Trouble. Hua Lao was surprised that his 2 attacks had failed to defeat his opponent, and a sense of frustration gradually rose in his heart. In his mind, the other party was like an unkillable cockroach, so fragile that a single step could crush it, yet it stubbornly struggled on. A sense of unease gradually rose in his heart, and he immediately stopped hesitating, unleashing a burst of red spiritual light from his body and releasing his full power. He planned to end the battle quickly with his strongest attack. Suddenly, the sky poured down 1,000 rays of moonlight, tearing a gap in the blood-red clouds. The ethereal, pure moonlight, cool and clear, merged into the black lotus shield, like a hazy veil, becoming one with the shield. Seeing the scene before him, Old Hua frowned slightly and looked up at Lin Xiaoxiao. At this moment, Lin Xiaoxiao was surrounded by a holy radiance, but her whole body was covered with strange black patterns. Even her originally lively eyes were occupied by black light, like a pair of completely black pupils, without any luster. Hua Lao felt that he had underestimated the Holy Lotus sect. His gaze fell on the black lotus behind Lin Xiaoxiao. The black lotus beat more and more powerfully, like a heart, as if something was about to be born. A powerful strike, condensed from red law patterns, slammed towards him. Bang! The powerful and fierce attack pierced through the shield in an instant, and blood-red threads and bright moonlight rushed forward frantically, trying to wear down the attack. However, the difference in their realms was too obvious. The laws of the Mahayana realm were unstoppable, advancing all the way to the black lotus that was nurturing the blood lotus. A glint flashed in Lin Xiaoxiao's lifeless eyes as she leaped to block the attack. Ignoring the backlash from her constitution, she pushed her spiritual power to its limit, unleashing the power of moonlight to form a light screen outlined by complex inscriptions. She stretched out her hands to create the final barrier for the black lotus. Swish! At the same time, dark red threads gathered like a tide in front of Lin Xiaoxiao. Bang! Bang! Puff! Lin Xiaoxiao coughed up blood, her body weakly thrown backward, and could only watch helplessly as the attack landed on the black lotus, a line of bloody tears flowing from her dark eyes. It's almost there. It's clearly almost there. Why? Click, click. The black lotus did not break, and Lin Xiaoxiao's obstruction still had some effect. Before she could even rejoice at seeing that the black lotus was still intact, a large hand restrained her body. Looking at the little girl in front of him, Elder Hua said in an icy voice, "Hand over the Pengyun Token." Pengyun Token? A look of surprise flashed across Lin Xiaoxiao's face. She hadn't expected that the other party's wanton attack was just for the Pengyun Token. A sneer appeared on her lips. "You should have said so earlier." Lin Xiaoxiao was somewhat speechless. She reached into her bosom, took out the Pengyun Token, and tossed it towards the old man. At that moment, all she wanted was to get rid of him as soon as possible. Holding the Pengyun Token, Elder Hua glanced at Lin Xiaoxiao in surprise. He hadn't expected her to obtain it so easily. Didn't she know how precious the Pengyun Token was? Or is this Pengyun Token fake? He immediately focused his spiritual energy in his palm and gripped the Pengyun Token tightly. It remained unchanged, and the Pengyun token pattern on it was lifelike, indicating that the token was indeed the real Pengyun token. Mr. Hua could no longer contain his excitement. Ha ha ha. After laughing, his gaze swept over Lin Xiaoxiao and landed on the black lotus in the valley. His expression became serious. He could feel the surrounding spiritual energy changing color and becoming increasingly turbulent. He hesitated whether to deal with the little girl and the things in the valley. Noticing the other person's gaze, Lin Xiaoxiao immediately tensed up and spoke up to remind them. You've already obtained the Pengyun token. Why are you still causing trouble? Aren't you afraid of causing unnecessary accidents? Lin Xiaoxiao's words startled old Hua, who gave Lin Xiaoxiao a deep look. Never mind. Lin Xiaoxiao was thrown into the valley. Her body fell limply from the air, her gaze fixed on the location of the black lotus, a hint of relief appearing in her eyes. Suddenly, crimson flames enveloped the entire valley. When Lin Xiaoxiao turned her head, her eyes were filled with the fiery red flames. To eliminate future troubles? Lin Xiaoxiao's expression turned bitter with a smile, her gaze lingering on He Lian. Xiaoxiao, you're so useless. Within the valley, the black mist surged, and spiritual energy poured in like a tide. Streams of dark red threads rushed madly toward Lin Xiaoxiao, forming a dark red blood cocoon that enveloped her. Suddenly, a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky. Clang, clang, clang. Golden raindrops rained down from the sky. They were countless coins engraved with mysterious inscriptions, freezing the surrounding space in place. Hua Lao, who was originally planning to deal with the Holy Lotus sect and leave, suddenly changed his expression and cold sweat poured down his forehead. He immediately planned to transform into a beam of light and escape from this place. Bite! A crisp clinking sound rang out, like coins clashing together. A layer of golden ripples spread out, dispelling the attack. A rustling sound, like a golden tide, radiating jewel-like brilliance, enveloped Elder Hua. Seeing the approaching attacks, Elder Hua's expression turned solemn, and the laws around him emerged, daring not to let himself be caught in them. This is a unique attack from the headquarters of the Mu family, Pearl Prison of Heaven. Once trapped within, it's difficult to break free unless you're a whole realm higher than your opponent. Chapter 233 Blood Lotus Resurrects. Mu Qingyun arrives. Before Elder Hua noticed, a bronze coin gently landed on his shoulder. It seemed as light as a feather, but it caused his spiritual energy to freeze instantly. The cage made of gold coins rapidly contracted, enveloping Hua Lao's figure within. Well. Old Hua felt a pang of despair, slumped down in the cage, and stopped struggling. Mu Qingyun slowly emerged from the void, a golden ancient coin on his right fingertip, which he gently flipped. His gaze fell coldly on Elder Hua. Elder Hua, you have broken the rules of Wanbao Pavilion. Old Hua looked somber, his head bowed, and remained silent. Any further explanation at this moment would be superfluous. As the manager of Wanbage in the western regions, he was well aware of the strictness of Wanbage's rules. Only with such a strict management system could Wanbage become the largest merchant guild in the Xiantian cultivation world. Wanbage shows no mercy to those who violate its rules. Mu Qingyun channeled his spiritual energy through his fingertips, and the Pengyun token flew out from Elder Hua's arms. Upon seeing this, Elder Hua instinctively reached out his hand, but it fell limply to his side. Is this the Pengyun token? Mu Qingyun examined the token in his hand. This was an item that had caused a sensation throughout the entire Xiantian cultivation world, and even the Mahayana elder of the Wanbao Pavilion had disregarded the rules to seize it. Mu Qingyun was naturally very curious as well. However, Wanbage never uses its power to seize customers' belongings. They prefer to trade. His gaze fell upon the valley, and when he looked at the black lotus in the center, his expression gradually became solemn. This is the birth of a special creature. Mu Qingyun's expression was one of surprise and uncertainty. Black energy surged around the black lotus, and the awakening aura made him wary. It's best to keep a respectful distance from this soon-to-be-born creature. Fortunately, He stopped Hua Lao in time, preventing a major disaster, and there was still room for things to turn around. The surrounding spiritual energy turmoil gradually subsided, but the speed at which spiritual energy condensed did not slow down. He took a deep look at the ball of light formed by the blood-red threads. He could sense how much the creature valued the little girl. Feng Kai Lao's attack might not destroy the opponent, but the little girl would certainly not escape death. This is truly inviting a terrifying entity with immense potential into Wanbeige's territory. Just then, the outermost petals of the black lotus slowly unfolded, and Mu Qingyun suddenly turned his head to look at the sky. It's so lively. 2 golden Buddha phantoms appeared in the void, accompanied by blooming golden lotuses. The two were none other than the Buddha of Rebirth and the Buddha of Joy who had arrived. When they saw the situation inside the valley, their expressions changed drastically. The Buddha's disciple has actually been resurrected? Buddha's disciple? Mu Qingyun murmured softly upon hearing their voices. Only then did the two realize that there were outsiders present. They turned to look at Mu Qingyun with a puzzled expression. They didn't recognize this person, but they were very familiar with the old man who was imprisoned beside him. Even the Mahayana master Hua was easily trapped by the opponent and immediately became on guard. Ignoring their reactions, Mu Qingyun looked at the black lotus in the valley and asked curiously, "Do you two know what is being born?" The Buddha of Rebirth and the Buddha of Joy exchanged a glance and shook their heads simultaneously. Have no idea. Seeing that they didn't want to talk, Mu Qingyun didn't force them. The black lotus was clearly related to Buddhist cultivation. Although its power was strange, it exuded an extremely pure Buddhist and Taoist essence. The figure of the Buddha of Rebirth appeared beside the Buddha of Bliss. "You bastard, you actually used the Great Freedom Heavenly Demon Seed on me. Didn't you use the freedom to cultivate Demon Pill first? Can those be the same? How are they different?" The two argued for a while, then looked solemnly into the valley. In front of the Buddha's son, all grudges could be put aside for the time being. The sky suddenly darkened, and a terrifying pressure enveloped the surroundings. This is a test sent down by heaven when a special being is born. The three of them retreated simultaneously to avoid being caught in the heavenly tribulation. After Mu Qingyun left with Elder Hua, he looked up at the sky with an extremely solemn expression. The pressure of this heavenly tribulation was far too terrifying. What exactly is this thing that is about to be born? My gaze turned toward the direction where the two Buddhas were. It seemed that only these two knew the answer. The black lotus has now fully bloomed. A phantom figure slowly emerged, waving its hand to disperse the blood-red threads binding Lin Xiaoxiao, and gently brushed the girl who was about to fall. At this moment, Lin Xiaoxiao's entire body was covered in black patterns, and her eyes had completely lost their luster, but she could still sense that familiar aura. She raised her small face, revealing a bright smile, her weak voice tinged with trepidation. "Lord Blood Lotus." She was afraid. She was afraid that if she spent too much time, the resurrected Blood Lotus would no longer be the person she knew. Blood Lotus looked at the girl whose entire body had been eroded by the backlash, and who no longer resembled her at all. Her eyes were full of heartache as she reached out and stroked the other person's head. "It's me." Two simple words instantly shattered Lin Xiaoxiao's composure. Tears fell silently, but she smiled happily. All the effort and pain during this time were worth it. Rest well. A blood lotus bloomed from Xuelian's fingertip and entered Lin Xiaoxiao's brow, temporarily suppressing the rampaging backlash power within her body. Lin Xiaoxiao closed her eyes peacefully, a slight smile still lingering on her lips. Blood Lotus turned her gaze to the outside of the valley, and Fatty felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. A crack appeared, and Lin Xiaoxiao landed beside him. Blood Lotus's icy warning rang in his ears. "Take care of her and get out of here." After the aura disappeared, Fatty sighed. Another day has passed. He glanced warily at the valley. The voice he had just heard must have been the Black Lotus that the adults had always valued. He hadn't expected that it would actually nurture such a terrifying existence. He recalled how he had lied to the old Mahayana monk, saying it was a descent of a god by the Holy Lotus sect. He never expected that a god would actually descend. Sensing the terrifying pressure emanating from above, it lifted Lin Xiaoxiao's body and flew away into the distance. Ha! The restraints are gone. It wasn't until it was flying in the sky that Fatty realized that the restraints within its body had disappeared. Above, the Buddha of Rebirth and the Buddha of Joy had been watching the unusual activity in the valley, and naturally noticed the presence of Fatty and Lin Xiaoxiao. They could sense how much the Buddha valued the girl, and were about to stop Fatty and seize the girl to threaten the Buddha. A figure materialized from the surrounding crimson threads, and Mu Qingyun looked over as well. Mu Qingyun nodded to the blood lotus, then looked at the two Buddhas. "Gentlemen, I'll protect those two." At the same time, it released a faint, almost imperceptible, pressure of Mahayana perfection. The faces of the Buddha of Rebirth and the Buddha of Joy immediately turned ugly. The two already had some guesses about this unfamiliar young man. Perhaps he came from the central region's myriad treasures pavilion. In comparison, cultivators in other regions are mostly independent cultivators. At the same level, they can completely crush their opponents. Your Excellency, do you intend to interfere in the affairs of the Western regions? Wanbage never interferes in the conflicts between other forces. However, Wanbage made a mistake this time, and we should make amends to that young girl. As Mu Qingyun spoke, he glanced coldly at Elder Hua. Chapter 234 The Transaction. Mu Qingyun's frankness. Upon hearing this, the others looked at the pale-faced Elder Hua with confusion, not understanding the meaning behind the young man's words. Blood Lotus coldly scrutinized her opponent, her eyes filled with wariness. He didn't know if the other party genuinely wanted to help, or if, like the two bold men, they wanted to use Lin Xiaoxiao to threaten him. Noticing Xiuxian's gaze, Mu Qingyun shrugged helplessly. A token floated in the palm of his hand and drifted toward the blood lotus. Pengyun Order. The Buddha of Joy and the Buddha of Rebirth nearby exclaimed in surprise upon seeing the token. He then looked at the young man as if he were an idiot. Didn't the other party know the value of the Pengyun token? He just handed it over so easily. Xiuxian took the Pengyun token and looked at Mu Qingyun with the same question in her mind. Mu Qingyun kicked Elder Hua beside him and said in a calm tone. The young girl came to Wanbage to sell items and was spotted by our elder who broke the rules. After a brief explanation of what had happened, everyone understood. Blood Lotus gripped the Pengyun token, looked up at the increasingly powerful pressure in the sky, and focused her gaze on Mu Qingyun. With a flicker of spiritual energy in his palm, Pengyun token was thrown towards the opponent. A promise or a deal? Meeting the other party's puzzled gaze, Xiuxian looked in the direction Lin Xiaoxiao had left. Protect their safety. If I don't survive this ordeal, send her away from the western regions. Mu Qingyun was taken aback and gave Xiuxian a deep look. He then smiled warmly and said, "Of course, no problem. Wanbage is a place for trading." Mu Qingyun certainly wanted the Pengyun token, but he couldn't quite understand this special creature and didn't want to risk offending it by taking it for himself. According to Wanbage's information, there are quite a few Pengyun tokens, and Wanbage will obtain them sooner or later. He glanced at the blood lotus and the two Buddhas, then smiled and nodded at the blood lotus. Then we won't disturb you any longer. Wanbage values its reputation above all else. Since we have agreed to the transaction, we will certainly be responsible and do our best. Xiuxian watched Mu Qingyun's disappearing figure. He didn't believe in the so-called credibility of Wanbage. After all, that old man was also a member of Wanbage, but he still took action because of Pengyun token. He believed in Mu Qingyun as a person. The fact that the other party could return the Pengyun token so openly shows that their character is beyond that of ordinary cultivators. Moreover, he really didn't have the spare energy to take care of Lin Xiaoxiao, so Mu Qingyun was one of his few options. In Xiuxian's opinion, exchanging a Pengyun token for the other party's protection of Lin Xiaoxiao's safety was worthwhile. Haven't seen you for a long time. Blood Lotus looked at the Buddha of Rebirth and the Buddha of Joy, her voice utterly cold. I'm back. His figure then transformed into countless dark red threads and vanished into the void. Damn it! The Buddha of Joy cursed in a low voice, exchanged a glance with the Buddha of Rebirth, and his face was extremely ugly. Thunder roared in the sky, foretelling an impending calamity. Let's get out of the area affected by the heavenly tribulation first. The Buddha of Rebirth had a somber gaze as he looked at the black lotus in the valley. His figure transformed into golden light and vanished from the spot. The Buddha of Joy immediately followed and left. The two knew the origin of the blood lotus. It was the reverse lotus devouring Buddha body, cultivated using forbidden methods, an evil entity not allowed to exist by the heavenly Tao. It is easy to imagine how terrifying the upcoming heavenly tribulation will be. If one is accidentally caught up in the heavenly tribulation, even a celestial being will likely perish. Thinking of this, the two stood in the distant void, coldly looking at the blood lotus in the valley. Perhaps they wouldn't even need to take action. The Buddha's son would perish under the heavenly Tao thunder rank. Inside the valley, the black lotus radiated a black light that devoured everything, with dark red blood patterns flowing within it. Inside, the blood lotus consciousness sensed the lightning tribulation that was constantly accumulating power in the sky. It's already comparable to the power of a Mahayana practitioner. Blood lotus's heart sank. The power of the heavenly tribulation was still increasing, and he had no idea how terrifying it would eventually become. Even at the current intensity, his chances of getting through it are extremely slim. Devouring Buddha, if I was born to devour Buddha, then let me bury the entire western regions. Blood Lotus muttered to herself, a crazy idea emerging in her mind. Countless dark red threads emanated from the black lotus and disappeared into the void, spreading like a spider web across the entire western regions. He needs nourishment to grow rapidly and increase his strength in order to face the heavenly tribulation. Then let all the Buddhist practitioners of the western regions celebrate his birth. Cheer for his birth. The essence of Buddhist practice is like a beacon in the darkness, enabling the dark red threads to pinpoint their location. Within each city, a crack appeared in the void, and strands of dark red threads silently seeped into the Buddhist cultivators' dantian. Ah! A series of mournful cries rang out as the Buddhist cultivators huddled on the ground, horrified to discover that their cultivation was rapidly dissipating, gradually turning them into decaying, desiccated corpses. After devouring the Buddhist cultivator, the dark red threads continued to split and spread, reaching far and wide, spreading fear throughout the western regions like a plague. However, during the splitting process, some threads passed through the void and flowed into the Blood Lotus's body like rivers flowing into the sea. Blood Lotus was surrounded by golden light, and her illusory figure gradually solidified, her strength rapidly stabilizing and increasing. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the valley, the Buddha of Rebirth and the Buddha of Joy, who stood suspended in mid-air, noticed the anomaly and looked up into the void. It seems the situation has changed. The Buddha of Rebirth carefully looked around and then looked at the Buddha of Joy and asked a question. Looking at the dark red threads constantly moving through the void, the joyful Buddha frowned slightly. This thing was clearly related to the Buddha's child. Let's attack together and destroy it. The Buddha of Rebirth nodded. Since we don't know what the Buddha's disciple is up to, let's just destroy it all. The two gathered golden Buddhist light, enveloping the entire valley within the heavenly tribulation range, preventing the dark red threads from entering the valley. Inside the black lotus, the blood lotus sensed a large amount of power dissipating. It looked up into the distance, a mocking smile flashing across its face. They didn't care at all about what the Buddha of Rebirth and the Buddha of Joy did. However, they also controlled their power and did not return for the time being. When the heavenly tribulation arrived, the two of them would leave on their own. In a distant city, Mu Qingyun led Fatty and his group down the main street. Suddenly, Mu Qingyun looked up and saw countless dark red threads emerging from the sky. Like a swarm of insects, they devoured the Buddhist cultivators below, and the once bustling and prosperous city was now filled with the wails of the Buddhist cultivators. One by one, the Buddhist practitioners had all their life force devoured, turning into corpses lying on the ground, which, when blown by the wind, turned into dust that filled the sky. Tsk tisk. Mu Qingyun watched all of this with amazement. He immediately recognized the dark threads as the work of that special being. Sensing the dark red threads that had gained power after devouring the Buddhist cultivator, Mu Qingyun had some guesses about the blood lotus, that it could devour Buddhist cultivators to increase their strength. What a madman! He's using the entire Buddhist cultivation of the western regions as nourishment. Hua Lao, who was restrained nearby, narrowed his eyes slightly after hearing Mu Qingyun's words. The Holy Lotus sect. He knew he was wrong, and at the same time, he gained a deeper understanding of the rules of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. The reason Wanbage has set such strict rules is to avoid provoking special beings. The larger the power, the more cautious one must be in one's actions. Perhaps it was just an unknown subordinate who bullied others and provoked an insignificant genius, yet he could drag down a power that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. Fatty watched all this in horror, but after discovering that the countless threads had lingered around him for a while before leaving without any intention to attack, he breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 235 Twin Stars of the Western Regions. Beneath the blood-red sky, the tribulation clouds had condensed into a deep purple vortex, with countless purple lightning bolts crisscrossing, radiating a pressure that made the heavens and earth tremble. Blood Lotus stood atop Black Lotus, looking up at the impending tribulation lightning in the sky, secretly making preparations. A flash of purple lightning streaked across the sky, and the first bolt of tribulation lightning crashed down, turning the entire sky purple with a blinding light that made it impossible to look directly at the sky. As the purple pillar of light fell from the sky, Blood Lotus gathered dark red power around her, and a blood-red lotus platform materialized, floating above her head. Smack! The lightning bolts collided with the crimson lotus platform, unleashing a dazzling light. The power of the blood lotus was not of the righteous path to begin with, and was completely suppressed by the overwhelming heavenly might. The dark red power dissipated at a visible speed the moment it touched the tribulation lightning. Blood Lotus had anticipated this scene, and her body shone with a bright red light as a large amount of spiritual power surged into the protective barrier above. Even the Buddhist and Taoist essence that had not yet been fully absorbed by the body surged in, coating the blood-red lotus platform with a layer of golden radiance. The golden light of Buddhism and Taoism is more effective in resisting lightning tribulations than the blood lotus's own power. At least it wouldn't be restrained or suppressed by the heavenly tribulation, which gave Blood Lotus a glimmer of hope in overcoming the tribulation. As the first tribulation dissipated, a small amount of residual power fell upon the Blood Lotus. Puff! Blood Lotus coughed up blood and collapsed onto the Black Lotus. Wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth, Shui Lian's gaze turned solemn. She had already found it so difficult to withstand the first lightning tribulation. More dark red threads returned from all parts of the western regions in the void, healing the injuries within the Blood Lotus and repairing the protective shield of the blood-red lotus platform above. The second, third, and fourth bolts of tribulation lightning fell in succession. The crimson lotus platform shield finally gave way and shattered, turning into countless red specks of light that dissipated into the sky. The Blood Lotus, along with the Black Lotus beneath it, crashed heavily into the ground, its blood-red light dimming. Blood Lotus struggled to her feet, a hint of doubt flashing in her eyes. How could this be? Why are there no high-level Buddhist cultivators in the entire western regions? Blood Lotus could sense that the Buddhist and Taoist origins brought back by the dark red threads were missing high-level Buddhist and Taoist origins, which was completely unexpected. Something must have happened in the western regions that he was unaware of during his resurrection. Blood Lotus was unaware that the high-level Buddhist cultivators in the western regions had been slaughtered by the Buddha of Rebirth and the Buddha of Joy, and the remaining low-level Buddhist cultivator essence was completely insufficient to support him through the heavenly tribulation. In the sky, the tribulation lightning continued to gather, giving Shui no time to think. Countless golden lightning patterns intertwined, and a soul-shaking roar faintly rang out, exuding the power unique to the heavenly Tao. Without a trace of emotion, it looked down on all living beings, as if it wanted to destroy all living beings within the range of the heavenly tribulation. The Buddha of Rebirth and the Buddha of Joy were watching this grand spectacle from afar. Seeing that the Buddha's disciple was about to perish under the heavenly tribulation, the two breathed a slight sigh of relief. Further away, the cultivators who had rushed to the scene of the strange phenomenon stopped in their tracks, no longer daring to go any further. The unexpected event was originally thought to be the birth of a great treasure or the opening of a ruin, but along the way, the Buddhist cultivators who were with them just moments before have all turned into mummies. This horrifying scene truly terrified the remaining cultivators. It was only when they discovered that these dreadful dark red threads seemed to only attack Buddhist cultivators that they managed to escape unscathed. That's why no one dared to go any further. Regardless of whether the ruins are opened or not, this kind of opportunity is not something they have the ability to compete for. The death of the Buddhist monk freed everyone from their greed and gradually brought them to their senses. Inside a desolate city, Pengyun Yun and his group were staying in a restaurant, while outside, the streets were littered with a large number of shriveled corpses. Pengyun Yun leisurely sipped his wine, sensing the sounds of the heavenly tribulation coming from afar. This is the 5th trial. I wonder if you can succeed. Pengyun Yun muttered to himself. Judging from the intensity of the tribulation, the blood lotus physique must be extraordinary. If it can successfully overcome this tribulation, another supreme being will be born in the Xiuxian cultivation world. Special beings, chosen ones, celestial spirits and divine beasts. These beings are inherently unreasonable, and their birth is something that many cultivators cannot compare to in a lifetime. Fatty carefully dragged Lin Xiaoxiao along, secretly glancing at Pengyun Yun, not daring to make a sound. He still doesn't know why this big shot is following them, but he can sense that the other party has no ill intentions. Fatty looked up at the gloomy sky in the distance, a hint of worry rising in his heart. However, due to his low strength, he could not clearly sense the movements of the heavenly tribulation. The heavenly capital of bliss, the myriad treasures pavilion. Zhou Yun stood on the top floor, looking at the faint divine might emanating from the distance, and his heart tightened. He always felt that this strange phenomenon was related to the Holy Lotus cult, but perhaps he was wrong. The Holy Lotus cult may be very mysterious. Thinking of this, Zhou Yun felt bitter. I'm usually so composed, so why does my heart flutter when facing the Pengyun Token? In the more distant central region, there is the Gate of Astrological Mysteries. At the summit of the mountain, the Star Elder and Wen Xuanji were still discussing the unusual movement of the immortal level destiny star, while looking up at the star evolution strategy. Suddenly, a dark red star rose in the western region of the Yantian strategy, its light flickering erratically. Another alien star has risen. There have been too many strange things happening lately, which is making me feel uneasy. The old man of the stars spoke in a heavy voice. Such strange occurrences suggest that another great calamity is about to befall the Xiuxian cultivation world, which would explain why so many chosen ones would appear at the same time. This is the heavenly Tao protecting itself in the Xiuxian cultivation world. Senior Xiuxian, you're overthinking it. Wen Xuanji shook his head, looked at Yen Tiance, and said softly, Master said. Wen Xuanji looked at the old man of the stars. This old man was too obsessed with the way of divination, which was why he was stuck at this step in this path and could not cross it for a long time. Upon hearing this, the Star Elder looked at Wen Xuanji. In the past, the old man Xuanji always gave vague answers about the art of deduction, telling him to figure it out for himself. But it took him hundreds of thousands of years to figure it out. Wen Xuanji pondered for a moment, then sighed softly. Sometimes, the truths you discover on your own are more beneficial than the answers others give you directly. But even the ancestor of astrology couldn't figure this out over the years. Even if he were given more time, it would probably be very difficult. He slowly began to speak. My master once said, our purpose in deducing the secrets of heaven is to observe the heavens rather than destroy the heavens. The will of heaven is predetermined and cannot be defied. What we can do is not to vainly change fate, but to seek a glimmer of hope for all living beings in the vast sea of calamity. Upon hearing this, the old man of the stars gradually fell into deep thought. Wen Xuanji did not disturb the other party, and his gaze fell on the Yentian strategy. The location of the western regions once had a bright, holy white star, but it has now dimmed. It was as if the two stars were opposed to each other and could not coexist. A crimson star rises, a pure white star falls. This is the wonder of observing the heavens. Thinking of this, Wan Xuanji was even more envious of the starry sky derivation strategy of the starry sky lineage. Unfortunately, their Xuanji lineage's Xuanji 4 symbols plate had already been sacrificed to the heavens. Chapter 236 The Madness of the Blood Lotus. The old man of the stars came to his senses, a hint of melancholy in his expression. He was extremely passionate about divination, but it was precisely because of this passion that he felt such deep regret. If he had a better talent for divination, he would surely have witnessed even more wonders of this world. Wan Xuanji shook his head. This old man was just too stubborn and always got stuck on trivial matters. Looking up at the celestial constellation, in order to prevent the old man from confronting the bullhorn, he took the initiative to change the subject. Senior astrologer, do you think this dark red star will go out? Heh. The old man of the stars chuckled softly, having seen through Wan Xuanji's thoughts. Instead of answering the question immediately, he reached out and stroked his beard, then looked up at Yen Tiansu. He then countered with, "Do you think that white star will shine again?" Wan Xuanji frowned. He hadn't expected the old man of the stars to ask such a question. His gaze fell on the western part of the Yentian strategy. Amidst the chaotic phenomena, a blood-red veil shrouded the entire western regions, making everything difficult to see clearly. Two stars facing each other, two stars standing side by side? It's only a difference of one word, but the meanings they contain are worlds apart. Wan Xuanji gave the old man a resentful look. The old man was so petty. He couldn't stand the slightest grievance. Wan Xuanji continued to observe carefully, but the more he looked, the more eerie it seemed. Cold sweat gradually appeared on his forehead, and blood vessels appeared in his eyes. Huff! Wan Xuanji gasped for breath. He forcibly shifted his gaze away from the celestial observation strategy, and closed his eyes to calm the restless spiritual energy within his body. The old man of the stars smiled slightly. "Youngster, you dare to make things difficult for me. I, your ancestor, have crossed more bridges than you've walked roads." A moment later, Wan Xuanji slowly opened his eyes, looked at the Star Elder, and respectfully clasped his hands in a salute. "Please enlighten me, senior." The old man with the stars wore a smug smile and stroked his beard. "I won't offer any guidance, but since I'm friends with your master, I can give you some advice." Astrology and mystery. Astrology is the board, mystery is the game. These are two different ways of observing the heavens. If you can understand them, or even integrate them, you will surely reach a higher level in deduction. Upon hearing this, Wan Xuanji looked at Yen Tian's again, this time focusing her attention on the entire chessboard, stepping out of the chess pieces range. He seemed to have realized something. "Come and learn from my astrology lineage more often." "Yes." Puff. Blood Lotus coughed up a mouthful of blood, her aura weakened, and she could no longer maintain her strength, collapsing onto the Black Lotus. A bitter smile flashed across his face. These events were all within his expectations. The tribulation of the reverse lotus devouring Buddha body was bound to be extremely terrifying. He had originally planned to absorb the Buddhist cultivation nourishment of the entire Western region, but he did not know what changes had occurred in the Western region, and the high-level Buddhist cultivators had disappeared. Within the valley, dark red threads flashed continuously in the void, rushing madly towards the blood lotus to replenish its nutrients and repair its internal injuries. Unfortunately, the Buddhist and Taoist origins they brought back were of too low a level, amounting to nothing more than a drop in the ocean for the blood lotus now. In the sky, the sixth tribulation was brewing. The tribulation lightning was a deeper color, and even had lore inscriptions appearing in it. This was no longer an ordinary tribulation lightning. "This time, I'm afraid we'll have a hard time getting through it." Sensing the terrifying pressure contained within the heavenly tribulation, Blood Lotus's expression turned solemn. He may perish under this calamity. He stood up again, gazing into the distance. At this moment, he felt no fear of death, but rather concern for the little girl who was suffering from the backlash of her constitution. Originally just a little tail behind me, it has somehow grown into something that shelters me from the wind and rain. I, Blood Lotus, don't want to owe such a huge favor. I will overcome this tribulation. Blood Lotus's eyes flashed again as she glanced past the two bold men from the western regions who were watching the show from a distance. A high-level Buddhist cultivator? This is it. In the distant void, the Buddha of Joy and the Buddha of Rebirth wore mocking smiles, waiting to see their disciple perish under the heavenly tribulation. They looked on with amusement, completely unaware that the Buddha's disciple had set his sights on them. It seems we don't need to worry anymore. The eyes of the Buddha of Rebirth narrowed to slits on his plump face. The prayer beads in his hand paused for a moment, and he distanced himself from the Buddha of Bliss. Now that the issue of the Buddha's disciple is about to be resolved, he and the blissful Buddha will naturally no longer need to maintain cooperation. The Buddha of Joy naturally sensed the Buddha of Rebirth's wariness, but did not pay it any mind. The Buddha of Rebirth, who had already been planted with the great freedom demon seed by him, was already like a fish on a chopping board. As long as time dragged on, the advantage would always be on his side. He could feel the energy continuously drawn from the Buddha of Rebirth within his body, but since his cultivation level was higher than the Buddha of Rebirth, the effect was not obvious. But for a cultivator at his level, even the slightest progress is extremely rare. Now, all he needs to do is stall for time. Buddha of Rebirth, you. Before the Buddha of Joy could finish speaking, a sudden change occurred around them. The spiritual energy became increasingly turbulent, and even a pressure comparable to that of a tribulation cultivator rushed towards the two of them. The two looked up abruptly, their faces turning pale with shock. A streak of crimson light flew toward them, and as they followed its movement, the area affected by the heavenly tribulation also began to close in. Not good. The Buddha of Rebirth cried out in surprise, and his figure instantly transformed into golden light and fled into the distance. Even with his current cultivation level, he would find it difficult to overcome the current intensity of the heavenly tribulation. Damn it! How dare this Buddha's disciple? The Buddha of Joy cursed under his breath, his figure following closely behind. Neither of them expected that the Buddha's son would do something so crazy, dragging them into the heavenly tribulation. Didn't he know that this would make the heavenly tribulation stronger and harder to overcome? Does he not want to live anymore? Dark red threads appeared in the void and erupted at this moment, transforming into layers of sky-covering nets that blocked the two people's way out. The two were forced to stop, their bodies radiating golden light as they broke through the blood-red network in front of them, which resembled a dense forest of thorns. Madman, madman! The Buddha of Rebirth roared, his initial composure long gone. He knows he has no way out and wants to drag us down with him. The joyful Buddha felt the heavenly tribulation approaching from behind, his expression extremely solemn. Now both of them regretted staying to watch the play. A large net, woven from layers of blood-red silk threads, tightly bound the two of them. This net contained the power of the entire western regions, as boundless as the tide. Although it appeared vulnerable under the heavenly tribulation, that was because the heavenly tribulation restrained the power of the blood lotus. However, the power of the blood lotus is also a great restraint on Buddhist cultivators, as the reverse lotus-devouring Buddha body was originally created to devour Buddhas. Dark red threads intertwined, and a massive blood-red lotus appeared in the void. Countless dark red runes lit up on the surface of the blood lotus, forming a large array that imprisoned the two people. Both the Buddha of Joy and the Buddha of Rebirth unleashed their personal treasures and joined forces to break the Great Formation. They were then horrified to discover that the Buddhist power that had broken the Great Formation was being absorbed by the dark red threads. The speed at which they broke through the formation was far slower than the formation's ability to repair itself. In fact, the stronger their attacks, the more solidified the formation became. A chill ran down their spines, and a hint of despair flashed in their eyes. Chapter 237 Immortality is difficult, Immortality is a dream. Monster. Monster. The Buddha of Rebirth's plump cheeks trembled slightly, and his voice carried a hint of fear. Be prepared to fight to the death. The Buddha of Joy beside him also looked grim. The two ultimately underestimated the terror of the reverse lotus devouring Buddha body. After all, the blood lotus they encountered before was not in its complete form, but was only prematurely born using secret methods. Now the fully matured reverse lotus devouring Buddha body, which triggered the heavenly tribulation, has finally demonstrated its terrifying suppressive power against Buddhist cultivators. The sharp blade they created ultimately turned against themselves. Join forces. The Buddha of Joy shouted, and golden light shone from both of them, with a huge golden Buddha statue appearing behind them. Faced with a life-or-death crisis, the two put aside their prejudices and joined forces once again. Their golden Buddhist light merged, transforming into a golden barrier that spanned heaven and earth. The two golden Dharma bodies together provided a powerful defense to resist the impending heavenly tribulation. However, the dazzling golden Buddha light was the most delicious delicacy in the eyes of the blood-red thread. As if they had smelled a delicious meal, countless dark red threads instantly rushed onto the golden barrier and began to devour the Buddhist power within the formation. Using crimson threads as a link, the blood lotus rapidly heals its internal injuries. The golden barrier visibly dimmed, and the Buddhist patterns crumbled one after another. Seeing this, the two men looked even more grim. They exchanged a glance, knowing that if things continued this way, the outcome would be predictable. Make your move. Only by addressing the root cause can we have a chance of survival. The joyful Buddha looked at the Buddha's disciple, his voice extremely solemn. The Buddha of Rebirth nodded. Just as the two were about to make their move, the sixth tribulation finally descended from the sky. Boom! The golden barrier radiated Buddhist light, truly befitting the golden light of Buddhism and Taoism. Compared to the defiled power of the blood lotus, it had an extremely strong resistance to the heavenly tribulation. Even though the barrier kept breaking, the power of the Buddhas of Rebirth and Joy managed to withstand the heavenly tribulation. Thanks to the two sharing the burden, Blood Lotus was also spared from harm during this tribulation. His figure appeared directly beneath the two Buddhas, using them to avoid the heavenly tribulation. As the heavenly tribulation continued to brew, the silk threads intertwined to form a blood-red lotus flower, enveloping itself within it. Damn it! As the Buddha of Rebirth sensed the even more terrifying divine might above, he looked down at the Buddha's disciples within the blood lotus and felt a surge of anger. They were being used directly as a shield. Make your move. Golden light emanated from the Buddha of Joy, who summoned the Vajra pestle, gathered all his power, enlarged the pestle, and hurled it towards the blood-red lotus below. A golden dragon shadow appeared on the surface of the Vajra pestle, its mouth wide open, roaring ferociously as it bit at the blood-red lotus. The Buddha of Rebirth glanced at the Buddha of Joy's improper Vajra, which was truly an insult to the dignity of the Buddhist path. However, he also summoned the Buddhist prayer beads in his hand. The prayer beads shattered, and the 7 golden beads formed a great array like stars, pressing downwards. The dark red threads became completely entangled with the two Buddhas, but Blood Lotus, sitting cross-legged in the blood-red lotus, curled up a mocking smile at the corner of her mouth. The golden Buddha light was continuously melted away as it attacked the lotus protective array. After absorbing the Buddha's light, the crimson lotus protective array's surface runes became even deeper and darker, more solid. How is that possible? The eyes of the Buddha who has attained rebirth are filled with despair. The Buddha of Joy also had a somber expression. This is truly an unsolvable situation. Their attacks are only increasing the strength of the Buddha's sun. At this moment, both of them felt a pang of regret, perhaps realizing that cultivating the reverse lotus-devouring Buddha body was a mistake from the start. But the idea only flashed through my mind. The attack stopped, and the blood lotus stopped absorbing the opponent's power. To overcome the tribulation, it would need to rely on the opponent's power. The power of Buddhism and Taoism is better able to resist heavenly tribulations than his own energy. The Buddha of Rebirth and the Buddha of Joy also realized the thoughts of their disciple, but unfortunately, they had no other choice. The only way to survive now is to help the Buddha's disciple overcome the heavenly tribulation. Perhaps that will offer a glimmer of hope. He immediately stopped expending his own Buddhist power to attack the Buddha's disciple, and focused all his energy on dealing with the terrifying heavenly tribulation that was about to begin. The heavenly tribulation has reached its final stage, with a dragon-shaped phantom appearing amidst the purple lightning, emitting bursts of roars. The seventh kalpa has brought about a qualitative change. Unlike the solemn expressions of the Buddha of rebirth and the Buddha of joy, Blood Lotus secretly breathed a sigh of relief. If he hadn't relied on the other party's power, he might have seriously injured him during the sixth tribulation just now. Inside the small town, Mu Qingyun sensed the sudden increase in the intensity of the tribulation lightning, and his expression changed. Has something unexpected happened? I wonder if it's a good thing. Fatty felt a chill run down his spine upon hearing the other person's words. Now that he's tied to the Holy Lotus sect, he naturally hopes that the person undergoing tribulation can survive. The stronger the sect becomes, the greater his future benefits will be. Lord Blood Lotus. Lin Xiaoxiao, who was sleeping soundly to the side, exclaimed in surprise and suddenly sat up. He opened his lifeless black eyes and looked around in a panic. My lord, you're awake? Fatty quickly caught Lin Xiaoxiao to prevent her from falling. Where is Lady Blood Lotus? How is Lady Blood Lotus? Lin Xiaoxiao grabbed Pang Tuo's arm, her voice tinged with anxiety and fear. Fatty glanced at Mu Qingyun, but he didn't know anything about the current situation of that person either. Fatty's silence only made Lin Xiaoxiao more panicked, and her internal energy surged again. Fortunately, the Blood Lotus technique suppressed it, preventing the backlash from erupting once more. Little girl, get some rest. Your parents have their own paths to follow, and as for the final outcome, let fate decide. Take me to the Blood Lotus. With a wave of his arm, Mu Qingyun caused Lin Xiaoxiao to fall into a deep sleep once again. His gaze fell on Lin Xiaoxiao, and he shook his head slightly. With such a strong backlash, it would be difficult to recover afterward. However, the backlash it generates also indirectly proves that the other party possesses an extraordinary physique. Two monsters with extraordinary physical abilities have actually come together. He then glanced coldly at Elder Hua, who was imprisoned beside him. How dare this old man provoke the other party? Is such a monster someone to be trifled with? If any one of them survives and grows up, it will be an endless disaster for Wanbage. Hua Lao felt a chill run down his spine as he met Mu Qingyun's icy gaze, wondering what he had done to offend this esteemed man. However, he had given up hope for his future. They'll probably be taken back to the headquarters of the Wanbage in the central region. Given the Wanbage's strict system, abolishing their cultivation is the least they can do. Wanbage will show no mercy to someone who breaks the rules like him. Holy Lotus Sect, Pengyun Order. Hua Lao had long regretted it. He shouldn't have had any greed in his heart in the first place. Having honestly guarded the western regions for many years, he had long since seen through the vanities of the world, smoothed out his rough edges, and forgotten the passion of his youth. But why is the Pengyun Order causing such a stir? Perhaps it was resentment. The path to immortality. The path to immortality. He couldn't resist taking another peek at the dream of immortality that every cultivator pursued. Immortality. Chapter 238 Dawn breaks in the western regions. The mysteries of astrology. The Star Elder sat quietly beneath the starry sky, observing the changes in the celestial phenomena. He picked up a cup of tea from the table and slowly sipped it, something he often did when he was atop the solitary peak. Seeing the dark red stars grow even brighter, when Xuanji knew that the fate of the western regions was sealed. However, when he looked at Bai Xing again, he frowned slightly. He really couldn't see any sign that Bai Xing had reignited. Two stars, destined to be opposites, appeared simultaneously in the western regions. This is the natural order of balance. From the moment of their birth, only one of the two stars is destined to exist. Your master told you that you need to observe the heavens, but you are only observing the stars now, with your vision limited to 1 or 2 stars. How can you possibly discern the hidden secrets of heaven? The old man of the stars took a sip of tea, and his voice slowly drifted out. Upon hearing the words of the Star Elder, Wen Xuanji finally shifted his attention away from the stars and slowly extended it to the entire western regions and the entire Xiantian cultivation world. However, the Xiantian cultivation world, which evolved from the starry sky derivation strategy, became even more blurred. Now, with strange phenomena already appearing everywhere, they are disturbing the secrets of heaven. Well, Wen Xuanji sighed. After all, this was a treasure of the astrological lineage, and it was not something he was good at. The secrets of heaven are in chaos, and the mysteries are unfathomable. Wen Xuanji respectfully clasped his hands, his voice somewhat dejected. The old man of the stars put down his teacup, raised his arm, and lightly tapped the void with a flicker of spiritual energy at his fingertips. Observe the stars for their shapes. Observe the sky for its power. You are fixated on the brightness and dimness of the stars, but you have forgotten why the stars are bright and why they are dim. As his voice rang out, the Yantian strategy continued to evolve, the stars flickered and shone, and the trajectories connecting with the twin stars of the western regions became increasingly clear before our eyes. Although the 10 extra immortal level destiny stars have caused chaos in the Xiantian cultivation world, the trajectories of the 2 stars in the western regions are gradually becoming clear under the guidance of the Star Elder. Even if I couldn't see the direction clearly, I could still get a general idea. This, a sign of mutual generation. Wen Xuanji's eyes widened. 2 stars that were originally incompatible have now shown a rare phenomenon of mutual support. A faint red and white thread connected the 2 stars together. The Star Elder waved his hand, dispelling the manifestation of the heavenly strategy, and his face showed signs of fatigue. The astrological lineage observes the grand trends of heaven and earth, and the course of the celestial way. His gaze fell on Wen Xuanji. And your Xuanji lineage excels at observing stars and pinpointing locations, discerning even the slightest changes in a particular place at a particular time. In truth, only when the 2 lineages unite can one glimpse the true secrets of heaven. A bitter smile flashed across Wen Xuanji's face. I naturally understand this principle, but the Xuanji lineage's most precious treasure has been destroyed, making it difficult to complement the starry sky derivation strategy. The old man of the stars looked at Yen Tiance, a hint of regret flashing in his eyes. If there were a cultivation method that could integrate the 2 paths of stars and mysteries, that would be the true path of deduction belonging to the star and mystery sect. Upon hearing this, Wen Xuanji shook his head. Such a cultivation technique is hard to find in the entire Xiantian cultivation world. The old man of the stars remained silent for a moment, a strange meaning flashing in his eyes. A thought had recently been creeping into his mind. The stars and mysteries were merging. He simply didn't know where that opportunity lay. He couldn't detect the slightest sign, but he firmly believed in his own guess. In the western regions, the tribulation lightning finally completed its formation, and a ferocious purple dragon roared as it descended, wielding its claws and sharp blades, tearing at the golden barrier. Form ranks. The Buddha of Joy shouted loudly. The 2 poured their Buddhist power into the golden protective array without reservation, constantly tug at the tribulation lightning. However, the 7th tribulation was already comparable to the mid-stage of the tribulation. Even with the 2 joining forces, the Buddhist seal formed by the golden Buddhist patterns crumbled inch by inch under the heavenly tribulation. The 2 men's speed in repairing the formation was far outpaced by the formation's destruction. As the formation could no longer be maintained and collapsed, the remaining purple lightning mercilessly struck the 2 of them. Pft, pft. The 2 fell to the ground, their faces as pale as paper, and the golden Buddhist light around them dimmed. As they fell, the 2 looked up at the sky, a hint of mockery flashing in their eyes. It turned out that they were so vulnerable under the heavenly tribulation. It crashed to the ground, raising dust and causing the earth and rocks to crumble. On the ground, the 2 Buddhas opened their eyes and their gazes fell on the Buddha's disciple, who was wrapped in a blood-red lotus. A hint of resentment flashed in their eyes. The seed I planted myself, I never imagined it would end like this. Noticing their gazes, Zhou Yun looked over. At this moment, the two were weak and ragged, no longer possessing the awe-inspiring Buddha's majesty they once had. Blood Lotus stood up, took a step in mid-air, and looked down at the two benefactors who had nurtured him. With each step he took, dark red threads appeared, clinging to the two men and burrowing into their bodies like nematodes, greedily devouring the essence of Buddhism and Taoism. No! Unlike the serene, joyful Buddha, the rebirth Buddha felt the loss of power within his body and roared in a shrill and desperate voice. No matter how they resisted, their cultivation levels surged into the blood lotus like a flood bursting its banks. I will survive the heavenly tribulation. Blood Lotus glanced indifferently at the two of them, then looked up at the sky. The screams coming from his ears grew weaker and weaker, while the aura emanating from him rose steadily and became more solid. At this moment, Zhou Yun's cultivation had clearly reached the tribulation transcending stage. By gathering the resources of the entire Western region and the power of the two Mahayana Buddhas, he finally pushed his realm to the tribulation transcending stage. In the 8th tribulation, the blood-red lotus protective shield shattered completely. The 9th tribulation is approaching, and this is also the final tribulation. As if sensing that the blood lotus is still alive, the tribulation lightning surges in the sky, and a series of low, angry roars resound. On the ground, as the last wisp of primordial power was devoured, the life force in the eyes of the Buddha of rebirth and the Buddha of joy completely dissipated. The two have not yet determined a victor, nor have they decided the allegiance of the western regions, nor have they entered the central regions. This is not the outcome they wanted. No matter how hard it is to accept, no matter how unwilling you are, death has already sealed your fate. Buddha's disciple, Buddha's disciple. At the last moment, their gazes fell upon the blood lotus. They did not regret creating the Buddha child. The stronger the Buddha child became, the more it proved that their decision was correct. However, due to an unexpected event, they were unable to fully control the Buddha's child. Pengyun. It seems that everything started because of it. The chaos in the western regions began to change the moment that ships sailed into the western regions. Under the surge of violent energy, the two withered and decaying corpses turned into dust and vanished into the western regions. At this moment, the heavens of the western regions were completely shattered, and this calamity, which affected the entire western regions, buried all Buddhist cultivators above the golden core stage. A golden ray of light pierced the sky and fell upon the land of the western regions, revealing a devastated landscape. But this is a region full of vitality and endless possibilities. As for what flowers will bloom and what fruits will grow, that depends on the choices made by the cultivators from the western regions themselves. Chapter 239 The Pure Qi of Tai. The Blood Lotus overcomes tribulation. Within the ancient ruins, passing through a sea of flowers and dense forests, the Pengyun merchant ship finally arrived at the core area of the ruins. Here, ruins and rubble are everywhere, and the traces of the great battle a million years ago are still clearly visible. Young master, look over there. Uncle Zhou looked ahead and saw that the area was filled with celestial energy and had a hazy glow, making it the only place in this region that had not been tainted by demonic energy. Zhou Yun looked up and his gaze pierced through the mist, revealing a pool of water about 100 meters square. The pool water was not colorless, but rather an extremely elegant sky blue, exuding a unique sense of nobility. Upon approaching it, any negative emotions within one's heart were cleansed. As the Pengyun merchant ship arrived above the pool, wisps of blue mist rose up and surrounded the ship. Zhou Yun reached out and brought in a wisp of pure energy, which made him more aware of the extraordinary nature of the pool water. Uncle Zhou leaned out and looked over curiously. Although he didn't recognize it, he knew that the pool of water must be a treasure. Click to view details and start browsing. Item: Tai Pure Qi Pool. Type: Energy Center. Rank: Top grade innate treasure. Effects: It crystallizes spiritual energy, acts as the central hub of the energy conversion array, absorbs all external energy, and transforms it into unique Tai Pure Qi, ensuring the energy needs of the entire Tai Divine Palace. The laws are derived to assist cultivators in their practice and comprehension of the laws. The Great Array connects to the void, continuously absorbing fragments of wandering laws between heaven and earth, making this place a land of laws. The land of creation, a breath of pure air reshapes the soul and replenishes the foundation of one's Tao. Details. The Tai Pure Chi Pool was a crucial asset for the Tai Divine Palace to become a top-tier sect in ancient times. After reading the introduction, Zhou Yun's eyes burned even brighter. This was truly a treasure, capable of supplying the energy needed to operate the entire Tai Divine Palace ruins. Well, Zhou Yun sighed regretfully. He could certainly take it by force, but that wasn't in his style. He could discover the connection between the entire ruins and this pool of water. If he took it away, the ancient ruins might collapse at any moment. Uncle Zhou, who was standing nearby, asked curiously, "Young master, how is it?" Not bad," Zhou Yun said, looking up into the depths of the black mist in the distance. "That." Zhou Yun raised his hand to interrupt Uncle Zhou, shook his head slightly, and steered the Pengyun merchant ship forward. "Let's go and meet the owner of this place first." Following Zhou Yun's gaze, Uncle Zhou saw only a thick, oppressive black fog. He did not see the owner of the ruins that his young master had mentioned. The Pengyun merchant ship broke through the black mist and disappeared into the core area of the ruins. Ever since entering this place, Zhou Yun felt that he was being watched, especially when he approached the Tai Pure Chi Pool, where a faint fluctuation of spiritual energy emanated from the surroundings. It's likely that the other party was afraid he would take away the Tai Pure Chi Pool and destroy the energy core of the entire ruins. Inside the core of the ruins, the Tai Divine Child frowned as he looked at the Pengyun merchant ship sailing in the core area as if it were nothing. A serious expression appeared on his well-behaved face, which was inconsistent with his appearance. He could naturally sense that Pengyun merchant ship was no ordinary vessel. Otherwise, he would have killed it directly when it approached Tai Qingqi Pool. What is their purpose? Yuan Chu looked down at the void demons being suppressed below and felt a headache coming on. Before the trouble below could be resolved, another formidable figure arrived from outside. Now, he could only pray that the people outside meant him no harm. However, the fact that they didn't directly take away the Tai Pure Chi Pool reassured Yuan Chu somewhat. This at least proves that the other party is not a greedy person. As the divine son of the Tai Divine Palace, he naturally understood the preciousness of the Tai Pure Chi Pool. Even in ancient times, it was a top-tier treasure. Countless cultivators in the entire Xiantian cultivation world wanted to enter the Tai Pure Chi Pool to cultivate, as it was a treasure that could directly allow cultivators to defy fate. Outside, the Blood Lotus finally faced its final tribulation. The 9th tribulation was finally completed, and the entire world darkened. An immense pressure pressed down on the Blood Lotus, as if the entire world was pressing down on it, making it difficult for the Blood Lotus to move even an inch. Now, without the two Buddhas from the western regions to share the burden of the heavenly tribulation, he can only rely on himself to overcome this final tribulation. Fortunately, after absorbing the power of the two Buddhas' origins, his internal energy has been restored to its full potential, and his cultivation level has been raised to the tribulation transcending stage, faintly approaching the mid-stage of the tribulation transcending realm. This is probably the source of the power of creatures with special constitutions. His cultivation level improved as if there were no bottlenecks, directly reaching a level that many cultivators could not achieve even after a lifetime of struggle. The stronger one's physique, the stronger the heavenly tribulation one will face. Of course, those with the physique that are favored by heaven and directly blessed, like Lin Xiaoxiao, are ultimately a minority. The roar grew louder and louder, echoing throughout the entire western regions. The remaining cultivators trembled in fear, not daring to look directly at the divine might above. A colossal purple dragon formed from lightning stretched across the heavens and earth, its eyes reflecting the interwoven laws of the heavens, staring at the tiny figure of the Blood Lotus. According to its operating rules, beings below that would affect the development of the cultivation world are not allowed to exist. It must completely annihilate them to maintain the normal operation of heaven and earth. However, the universe operates according to its own laws. Even if the other party is not allowed to exist, since it has been born, the heavenly Tao will leave a wisp of life for it. The lightning strikes will not exceed a certain level. Blood Lotus stood in mid-air, calmly watching the impending heavenly tribulation without the slightest fear. We've reached the final step. Let's do our best. Ah! Blood Lotus roared to the sky, releasing all the Buddhist and Taoist essence that it had not yet fully absorbed, which condensed into a golden Buddhist light shield in the sky. Compared to his own energy, the Buddhist and Taoist origins are more effective at resisting heavenly tribulations and are not restrained by tribulation lightning. Then, dark red threads surged out from his body, forming blood-red lotus flowers under the golden Buddhist light shield, enveloping him layer by layer. 9 blood lotuses, plus a golden shield, made a total of 10 layers of protection, keeping him firmly under guard. Looking at the mysterious runes flowing on the blood-red lotus shield, Blood Lotus clenched her fists tightly. Even though she was not afraid of death, she still felt nervous. But the heavenly tribulation wouldn't give Blood Lotus time to think. With a flash of purple light, half the sky of the entire western region was illuminated, and a soul-shaking roar resounded. Fortunately, the heavenly tribulation was only aimed at the Blood Lotus. Otherwise, the remaining cultivators from the western regions would likely have had their souls shattered by the thunder. Blood Lotus, who was at the center of the tribulation lightning, was not having an easy time either. The moment the thunder roared, her eyes glazed over, and she froze in place, losing the ability to think. Boom! The purple lightning dragon crashed down, colliding with the golden Buddhist light shield. The protective shield was as fragile as paper. It was pierced instantly, and the crimson lotus continued to dissolve. Bang, bang, bang. 9 blood-red lotus flowers exploded one after another, and blood-red runes flew everywhere. The remaining energy of the tribulation lightning slammed into the blood lotus, blasting its body into the ground. Chapter 240 The Supreme Divine Child, The Primordial Beginning. Under the calamity, the valley had long been leveled. In the deep pit, the blood lotus lay quietly, its body charred black and covered with hideous cracks, with blood constantly gushing from its wounds. Only the slight rise and fall of his chest proved that he still had a breath left. Beside it was a black lotus platform covered in cracks and with a dull luster. As Blood Lotus lost consciousness, at the last moment, Black Lotus unleashed its full power, giving Blood Lotus a glimmer of hope. As treasures that accompany the Blood Lotus, they are inherently one. In such a desperate situation, they forged a path to survival. The thunderclouds in the sky gradually dissipated. But there were no auspicious omens, no blessings, and even though the Blood Lotus passed the test of heaven, it was still not recognized by this world. Inside the ancient ruins, in the abyss cave shrouded in black mist, Yuan Chu opened his eyes and looked at the Pengyun merchant ship that appeared in the sky. A hint of wariness flashed in his black and white pupils. As the ship drew closer, he sensed its extraordinary nature more and more. Despite his perfected immortal cultivation, he couldn't see through the other party at all. As soon as his divine sense approached the merchant ship, it was as if he was sucked into a bottomless black hole. As Yuan Chu looked at Pengyun's merchant ship, Zhou Yun was also sizing him up. Upon seeing the cultivation level of the primordial realm, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. He never expected that the Tai divine child, who guarded the core area and suppressed the strongest void demon clan, was actually the weakest. This is likely related to the physique mentioned by the Holy Spirit Dragon Emperor. The primordial purification body possessed by the Tai divine child must have a great restraining effect on the void demon clan. What brings you here, Your Excellency? Yuan Chu spoke first, feeling uneasy until he understood the other party's intentions. Pengyun merchant ship, Zhou Yun. Zhou Yun looked the other person up and down at his face, which resembled that of a 10-year-old child. Qing Yun said you can make the decision, so I came to ask for your opinion. As Zhou Yun spoke, he opened his palm, and the earthen yellow world seed floated in his palm. Upon seeing the world seed, a hint of surprise flashed across Yuan Chu's face. He then calmed down and stared at the world for a long time with a complicated expression. My name is Yuan Chu. May I ask what you are referring to? Uncle Zhou stood quietly to the side, but his gaze kept sweeping over Yuan Chu. Was this fair-skinned and adorable child really the divine child of Tai? Zhou Yun glanced at Uncle Zhou, then turned to look at Yuan Chu. A deal. He opened his palm again, and a dragon horn exuding an ancient aura appeared in his hand. As the dragon horns appeared, the surrounding mist let out a mournful howl and retreated back under the great formation. The land that was once shrouded in black mist has finally been bathed in light. This is... Yuan Chu stared intently at the dragon horn in Zhou Yun's hand, for it was the same aura he had sensed earlier. He looked down at the trembling void demon within the formation, his eyes burning with desire as he gazed at the dragon horn. A dragon horn containing a wisp of the ancestral dragon's aura. Would you be willing to exchange it for this world seed? As soon as Zhou Yun finished speaking, Yuan Chu immediately spoke up. Willing. Seeing the eagerness on Yuan Chu's face, Zhou Yun was somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected the other party to agree so easily. Yuan Chu ignored Zhou Yun's reaction and kept his eyes fixed on the dragon horn. The world seed was merely a thought. The moment the world's ascension failed, the world seed was destined to never be restored. Right now, the most urgent task is naturally to solve the problem of the Void Demon Clan. The Tai Heavenly Palace had reached its limit in suppressing the Void Demon Clan and was forced to activate its power. Once it's opened, it will be difficult to close again. Following the collapse of Tai Palace, the Void Demon Clan will inevitably ravage this land once again. Zhou Yun threw the dragon horn towards Yuan Chu. Since the other party had agreed to the trade, it naturally belonged to them. Yuan Chu held the dragon horn, his aura rippled slightly, and wisps of black energy drifted out. The originally unstable black and white energies actually began to merge and solidify at this moment, as the dragon horn was assisting him in fusing with the Nirvana demon Qi. Yuan Chu hadn't expected such an effect, and a hint of excitement flashed in his eyes. Previously, he wasn't confident about devouring the Void Demon Clan to cultivate the primordial Saint Demon body, but now he sees a glimmer of hope. With a slight clench of his fist, a vast and ancient dragon roar reverberated throughout the space. A roar came from below the great formation. Damn outsider, when my race is reborn, I will make you suffer eternal damnation. Ah! Accompanied by shrill screams, wisps of black energy drifted out from the great formation. Besides the 3 void demons comparable to immortals, there were also many demons with low strength within the formation. Of course, this weakness is only relative. The Void Demon Clan possesses a powerful racial advantage, being born with the strength of a nascent soul cultivator. The moment the demonic energy appeared, Yuan Chu began to greedily absorb it. Before, he had some reservations about absorbing it, fearing that he would disrupt the balance between the black and white energies within his body. Now, with the help of the dragon horn, I can be much more unrestrained. Hearing the angry roar from below, Zhou Yun curiously glanced over. Ha! Zhou Yun originally thought that the Void Demon Clan were all a bunch of hideous creatures. Surprisingly, even by human standards of beauty, he was exceptionally handsome. With blood-red pupils, purple hair, and purple skin. The only difference between them and humans is that they also have a pair of curved, sharp horns and a long, sharp black tail. Just as Zhou Yun was about to withdraw his divine sense, he noticed a hidden corner. The area was isolated by the entire formation, forming a narrow space. Behind the thick black mist, a woman dressed in a long purple dress, extremely beautiful, lay languidly asleep on the ground. Her snow-white ankles were bound by a black iron chain engraved with runes. The only difference between her and normal humans is that she has long purple hair, just like the void demons. There is a faint trace of annihilation demonic energy within him, which seems rather unstable. Is it something he was born with? Zhou Yun's muttering to himself caught the attention of Uncle Zhou and Yuan Chu. Uncle Zhou followed Zhou Yun's gaze, but he couldn't see through the great formation. Noticing Zhou Yun's gaze, Yuan Chu looked at a corner of the great formation with complicated emotions. The earliest idea of devouring the annihilation demon Qi to cultivate the primordial saint demon body came from finding an opportunity in the other party. At first, one could deduce the movement of the demonic energy and spiritual energy within the other person's body. But in the later stages, one could only rely on trial and error. He looked up at Zhou Yun, and his voice rang out leisurely. That was the child born to the previous goddess of Tai Heavenly Palace and the prince of the Void Demon clan. Consider it a stain that Tai Heavenly Palace doesn't want anyone to discover. The entire Shention cultivation world harbored immense hatred towards the Void Demon clan. When news spread that the goddess had married the Void Demon clan prince, it directly plunged the Tai Heavenly Palace into a fire pit. In order to quell the anger of many cultivators, Tai Heavenly Palace always charged ahead in the subsequent battles, which made it the first of the many forces to be destroyed. Fortunately, he possessed the primordial purifying body, which had a strong restraining effect on the Void Demon clan. This is why he was chosen to guard the Great Formation and thus survived. Will he be able to save his life? The entire Tai Heavenly Palace is gone. What's the point of him, the Tai Divine Son, surviving? His feelings toward the girl below were complicated. Because